Oviatt Library here at CSU. And it really is my pleasure to welcome all of you to the library, the center, the heart of campus. Today's event, which is one of several in the library and across campus that commemorates Black History Month, is really important, and we've done this for several years, and each year it just seems like it gets better and better. I'd first like to thank the planning committee for all their work in making today possible. And as I mention your name, please stand so we can recognize you, but hold your applause until I finish naming all the members of the committee. The chair, Del Williams, Jackie Zack, Joycelyn Dunham, Kimberly Empleton, Steve Couttet, Keith Rice, Isabel Ramos, and Nicole Shabata. Please acknowledge them. It really has been a great amount of work that this committee has put in with passion and dedication. As I mentioned, this is the 4th year that the Oviatt Library has sponsored special lectures, panel discussions, exhibits, and other events as part of our recognition of Black History Month. And some of these talks have been celebratory in nature. For example, we heard a couple of years ago a lecture on the history of South Central Los Angeles, or we learned about the legacy of noted civil rights attorney Gordon Miller. We viewed an exhibit and heard presentations on Black aesthetics and fashion in the arts. We heard a really interesting talk on the history in California of African Americans in this state, even before it reached statehood. And we had a panel discussion that talked about Black Lives Matter. But sometimes the discussions that we have, the events that we sponsor, are not so much celebratory as they are sobering. And today is one of those events. Justice is a word that in our society and beyond is aspirational, but too often it's fleeting. It's something that all of us hope for, but we don't always get a chance to see it in action in real life. Justice is a word that many of the early civil rights leaders in this country used as a powerful rhetorical device. Some used it in an aspirational way, such as Martin Luther King Jr., when he reminded us in his famous expression that the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. Or, again, when Dr. King quoted the Bible when he preached, "Let justice roll down like waters and righteousness like a mighty stream." But many recognize the tenuous grip that people of color in America have with justice. And again, I quote Dr. King when he said, "Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere." And similarly, Maya Angelou said, "Justice is like the air. We all have it, or none of us has it." And many of us here in this room today work and study in the California State University system. And it's a place where, more than many other spaces in our society, seeks equity and justice for people of color. Or at least that's the stated goal for many of us. But there are times when the system fails us. There are times, more than we would like to admit, when justice seems elusive and sometimes even non-existent. But most of us aspire to better. And that is what today's panel is about. We state our objective to have a more just society, but we also acknowledge the pain, the sadness, the bitter reality when that goal is not reached. I intend to listen to today's panel participants and to reflect on what they say and on what I can do, perhaps a small way to help bring more justice to our broken society. I hope to leave today with a renewed sense of purpose, despite the failures that we must acknowledge and confront. So now I ask Della Williams, CSUN Library faculty member and social work librarian, to come to the podium to introduce today's moderator. Della?
Thank you, Mark. Thank you to my committee. Before I forget, I really appreciate all your help. We couldn't have done this without you. It's my pleasure to introduce our moderator, Dr. Martha Escobar. Dr. Escobar is an associate professor. Is an associate professor in Chicano and Chicano Studies here at Northridge. She is the author of Captivity Beyond Prisons: Criminalization Experiences of Latina Immigrants and Migrants, which considers the relationship with the U.S. prison system and immigration and migration enforcement and the impact on Latina immigrants and migrants. She provides a comparative intersectional analysis of how Latina immigrants and migrants are currently criminalized and connects this to the longer history of captivity of blacks in America. Her new research focuses on the experiences of Latinx lifers, Latinx incarcerated in California prisons with indeterminate life sentences. Let's reflect on that for a minute. Indeterminate life sentences. She is particularly interested in examining the parole process from an intersectional perspective that analyzes how race, class, gender, sexuality, immigrant and migrant status, language, physical ability impact Latinx lifers' ability to parole. She's also the faculty advisor for Revolutionary Scholars and has been instrumental in keeping Quinten Thomas's memory alive on this campus. So please join me in welcoming our moderator, Dr. Martha Escobar.
Thank you, everybody, for being here, for the organizers and the panelists for being here, and all the work that you do to create some positive change in this world. Today, I hope that beyond celebrating Black History Month, that we can engage in meaningful dialogue on the what safety and justice means for Black students in the CSU system. How do we create that reality where there's real justice, where there's real safety for our students, not just at CSUN, but across higher education, period. I was, again, in part asked to moderate today because back in November, I was one of the organizers for a memorial for Quinten Thomas. For those of you that are not familiar, Quinten was a student here at CSUN. He was looking forward to graduating with his major in public health, and he wanted to become a nurse. He was incarcerated March 2nd in Twin Towers. March 9th, he was found dead. And some folks are going to speak a little bit more about his case. But I was really upset at the time because other than EOP on campus, there wasn't any statement made about his death. There wasn't any recognition of Quinten on this campus. No statement was made by the president, right? And to me, it's like, how can one of your students die incarcerated, given especially what we're seeing, Black Lives Matter in this movement, and for us to not say anything, right? So it came from that place of anger and pain and wanting to respond to that silence, right? Quinten, like so many of our students, had a really difficult life. He was in the foster care system since he was 16 years old. He was epileptic. He faced chronic houselessness throughout his life. And so I understand his death was structured by his life conditions. Okay? It occurred in a context where police, security guards, vigilantes kill a Black person every 28 hours. It occurred in the United States, the country that has 5% of the world's population, but almost 20% of the world's incarcerated population. It occurred, Blacks in the United States make up about 12.6% of the overall population, but 38% of the people that are incarcerated and 23% of children in foster care, right? Those are all conditions that structured Quinten's death. And we have to understand it from that perspective. I was also motivated to organize, to remember Quinten's life, in part because of what I'm witnessing here at CSUN and things, patterns that I'm seeing here at CSUN. We're part of a system where 1 out of 10 students faces houselessness across the CSU. We're in our county, LA County, has the largest jail system in the world and sends more people to prison than any other county in the state. We're part of a university where students of color make up 75%, but white faculty make up 63%, right? And to add to all of this, over the years, I wanted to show some numbers. The number of black students have consistently been decreasing. So here, let me see where my picture is. 2010, black students, all students, this includes grad students, undergrad, everybody. Black students were 7.34% 2010, 2018, 4.62%, right? So we're seeing a decline in the overall number. Here, specifically, we're looking at the number of black students. So whereas in 2010 there was 2,590, 2018, 1,790. Something is happening structurally here at CSUN that's leading to this. These are new students coming into CSUN 2010 to 2018. Again, new students coming in, 2010 we had 7.7%, and 2018, 5.2%. There's a big jump here in 2012, and I think that has to do with the policy that we implemented here in Action to try to reduce the number of students coming in, and of course that's going to disproportionately target some more than others, right? So I wanted to share those numbers. These are the raw numbers, right, 2010 to 2018. New black students, again, 2010, 745, and we've seen it, steadily decreased, but it's jumped up and down, but this last year was 483, 745. So as we're engaging in this discussion today, I want us to keep this context in mind, right? Because there's something that's happening in society and there's something that's happening here at CSUN that's leading to this, that's leading to losing our students, specifically black students, right, on this campus. And we have to be very mindful of, if we're talking about justice, if we're talking about safety, right? What are we doing here to make it so unsafe for them not to be here anymore, right? What is pushing them out, or why do they not feel that they can stay here on campus? So I'm going to introduce our panelists, and first is Dr. Watkins. Dr. Watkins was appointed Vice President for Student Affairs and Dean of Students at California State University Northridge in June 2010. He provides leadership to the CLOTS Student Health Center, University Counseling Services, Student Outreach and Recruitment Services, Disabilities Resources and Educational Services, Financial Aid and Scholarships, the National Center on Deafness, the Career Center, Center on Disabilities, Student Conduct and Student Housing and Conference Services. In his role as Dean of Students, he serves as an advocate for students, supports student well-being, and promotes student ethical development. Dr. Watkins serves as a member of the President's Cabinet. He is an alumnus of CSUN. He earned his bachelor's degree from Urban Studies in 1974. As an undergraduate student, he was selected as student body president, the first African American to hold that position. He was awarded a scholarship to attend the University of Southern California, where he earned his master's in public administration, and he went on to receive his doctorate in education leadership from the University of California, Los Angeles. Our next panelist is Charmaine Lawson. Charmaine is an immigrant from Jamaica and came to this country as a teenager. She graduated from Washington High School and Southwest Community College in Los Angeles. She's the proud mother of 3 brilliant, outstanding, and amazing children, Chloe, Anthony, and David Josiah. Josiah was a student at Humboldt State University, and he was stabbed to death on April 15, 2017. And now she's part of a movement seeking justice for her son. Next we have Michelle Infante. And Michelle is a civilian oversight campaign lead and state policy advocate for Dignity and Power Now, DPN, as well as DPN's office administrator. As someone who is formerly incarcerated in Los Angeles County Century Regional Detention Center and experienced abuse in that place, Michelle is uniquely skilled in transformative, trauma-informed, strategic social justice work. As civilian oversight campaign lead, Michelle has researched review panels in local departments worldwide and has been instrumental in the implementation of civilian oversight over the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department with a 9-member board and no current law enforcement. Yay, thank you. Sahara White. Sahara is currently a student in community college. Sorry, I forget where, Sahara, where are you at? Southwest. Southwest? Okay, good. She's looking forward to transferring to CSUN at some point in the future, soon, hopefully. And she was Quinten's partner at the time of his death. And she is the mother of his child, Ashanti, who's now 2 years old. Yes. Our next panelist is Malik. Malik Campbell. Malik is a second-year undergraduate student majoring in biology and minoring in psychology and Africana studies here at CSUN. He has been involved in the fight to save ethnic studies since his first semester. He is currently researching help-seeking behaviors in minority populations and wants to explore how ethnic identity and socioeconomic factors affect the cultural values and social support needs or processes of African Americans, African immigrants, and American Indians. His future research will likely intertwine with social justice and/or Black psychology and cultural psychology. His exact career path remains unseen, but his aim is to bring culture and diversity to science and better understand minority populations that have historically been overlooked and/or mistreated. And our final panelist is Justin Andrew Marks. He's a student here at CSUN, majoring in sociology, and are you also majoring in Pan-African studies or minoring?
Majoring in Pan-African studies.
And minoring in English literature?
Yes.
All right. He was one of the CSUN student protesters arrested on March 4th, 2010, where 7,000 people demonstrated against budget cuts to education and expanded administrator salaries. He has experience working as a union representative and is a community organizer. Justice is a member of Black Lives Matter Los Angeles and works towards creating positive social change for poor communities and communities of color. So with that, please help me welcome all our panelists. So I'm going to start with a number of questions, and then we'll open it up to Q&A. So Charmaine, we'll start with you. Can you provide us a little bit of background on Josiah's death and some of the work that you've been doing to bring attention to his situation?
Absolutely. Hello. Testing. Hello, everyone. Let me just start by saying thank you all for being here. Thank you to Dell. I appreciate you reaching out to me and asking me to be a part of this panel. I am so sorry for your loss. I'm truly sorry. And we're going to work together. Okay, we're going to work together. My son, DJ, 19 years old, a student at Humboldt State University. I received a phone call early Saturday morning, 3-something. My son was taken to the emergency room because he was stabbed as he was leaving a party. My son was leaving a party with 4 of his friends. He was invited to a birthday party for a friend that also attended HSU. And as they were leaving the party, they were approached by 5 individuals, 4 girls and a male. Altercation broke out. pepper spray was used on my son and his friends. As my son was going home, but head back because he was trying to get his girlfriend, he was viciously attacked, and that attack took his life. He was stabbed multiple times. A suspect at the time was arrested. We went through 5 days of preliminary. The suspect was released. It was a white male. He was released, and I'm here. I'm here 22 months later, fighting for justice for my son. I've traveled back and forth from Southern California to Northern California multiple times, sometimes twice, 3 times a month, to meet with the DA, to meet with the chief of police, to meet with HSU staff, the community. We've had dialogue on student safety, off campus and on campus. We've reached out to Dr. Rossbacher, the president of HSU, and very disappointed that she's not as involved as she should be, because one of her students was viciously murdered less than 10 minutes away from campus. So that is the struggle, is fighting with administration and not getting the type of support that my son deserved. My son had completed almost 2 years. He was a criminologist major, wanted to work on social justice and make a big change in his community. And for his life to be taken and no one to be held accountable, you know? It hurts. It hurts as a mother. I can't even grieve the loss of my son because I'm fighting for justice for him. I'm fighting for him. I have the California faculty who has jumped on board with me. We have gone to the Board of Trustees meeting several times. We've met with the Chairman Day and Chancellor White. After going back and forth so many times to the Board of Trustees, they finally, Dean Chairman Day and Chancellor White finally made it up to Humboldt to meet with the DA office, the chief of police, and the city council members to find out what is taking so long, why isn't justice being served. I've spoken with the Attorney General. I know CFA have gone to speak with the Attorney General, wanting my son's case, TJ's case, to be turned over to them, because there's definitely hate bias that was shown to my son that night. And in Humboldt County, if you're not familiar with Humboldt County have a history of racism. If you're not familiar, it's very remote. It's institutional racism, it's systemic racism, and people of color are definitely in danger. I feel like when Humboldt State is recruiting students here in Southern California, they're recruiting the students in the inner cities, and they're recruiting students of color, and they're bringing them into a environment that, or a climate that is not welcoming to them. So when the police was called that night, they pretty much let my son lay there and die. The defibrillator wasn't even working to just perform basic life-saving, for him. And the chief of police has since resigned. We got him out of there. We got him out of there, so. We got him out. Dr. Rossbacher, the president of HSU, she's announced her retirement, so she's leaving as well. So I'm fighting for my child. I'm fighting for students of color, letting this society know that we're not, as parents, as a black mother, my child was going to be the first child in our family to graduate from college, from a 4-year university. DJ set very strong standards for himself. And he had 2 smaller siblings that he wanted to set an example for, and that's exactly what he was doing. And through these that 22 months, it's been very difficult. It's been the hardest thing that I've ever had to go through. But I've toured CSU campuses, I've met with amazing students who are working for DJ, working for themselves, working to make sure that they are safe when they are on campus and off campus. So I'm doing a lot of work, and I'm going to continue to do so as I search for justice for my son.
We're going to come back to this idea of he was doing everything right? He was going to school, he was getting educated, right?
He was doing everything. My son, 19 years old, and not that it matters, but he's never been in trouble a day in his life. Like I said, he set those goals for himself. He graduated from high school. His father was in the military. He lived in Germany for a year. He lived at Fort Hood. When he stayed with Dad for a few years, came back home for junior high school and he did everything right. He was a football player. He ran track. He did everything that he was supposed to, and he knew that his dreams was to go to college. My grandmother is still alive. The last time my grandmother, his great-grandmother, who was 87 years old, saw him was when he was heading off to Humboldt, and that was a proud moment for her, being an immigrant coming from a small island, another country, and we're here to better ourselves and to give our children the education, or just to give them a better opportunity. And that's what he was doing. He was doing everything right. He did everything right. My son was going home from a party.
And I'm going to ask the same question to Zahara to provide us with a little bit of background on Quinten's death. But we'll come back to this question in a minute, because both Quinten and Josiah were doing everything right, and yet they ended up dead, right? And we have to revisit like that idea, like why is it we're being told, right, if you just go to school, if you just work hard, if you just behave the way, right, that you're expected, you're going to be successful, and yet for them it ended up in a completely different direction, right? And so we'll come back to that point. Zahara, can you give us a little bit of background on Quinten, who he was, and how he died?
Yeah, I'm going to try my best. I still get really emotional when it comes to speaking, so please bear with me. First, I want to thank you all for being here and having an open ear and an open heart. Thank you, Martha, for everything that you're doing and keeping kids alive here on campus. I'm still wondering, kind of like all of you are, what happened that night. Like you said, he was picked up on March 2nd around 9 o'clock. He was going to the 7-Eleven. Still don't have a reason why he was picked up, why they kept him. That's still unknown. 7 days later, March 9th, supposedly he was found unresponsive in a one-man cell. I got the news the next day. A detective had called my phone from a private number asking to speak with me, and I had my daughter. She was here, and Quinten was planning on seeing her that weekend. And with it being a private number and me having my baby, I didn't want to bring him to the house because I didn't really know who it was. So he suggested we meet at a local place, and so I picked him up the street. And there he told me the news. Everything is still very unclear. It's just a big mystery question, to be honest. He was in his 4th year here at CSUs. He wanted to be a registered nurse. He always used to talk about being successful. That's what he wanted to do with his life, is just be successful. He wanted to end the cycle because so many people around him, especially, he mentioned all the men in his family, have been incarcerated, either are incarcerated or have been incarcerated before, and he didn't want to be like that. He wanted to change the cycle, and he was in foster care, and he never expected to be in college. A recruiter had came and just asked, hey, you want to go to college, sign these papers, and next thing you know, he was here. And it's amazing because he's got so many other people into college. Like, I'm in college, like, I'm living proof. Like, I wouldn't be in college if it wasn't for Quinten. I'm also a first generation as well. My plan was just to get my high school diploma, and that was it. I never really planned on going to college, and when I met Quinten, we met in LA. And he surprised me because, looking at him, he's tall. He was 6'4.5", dreadheads, glasses, tattoos. And the first thing he gonna whip out on me is a report card, like he had straight A's and like 1 B. I'm just like, oh, you go to college? And he was like, yeah, I go to CSU and this and that. He started bringing me to the campus, and I even sat in class with him a couple of times, like, so I thank you for that, Quinten. Because now, like, I have a better way to show my daughter. Yeah, he was a great man. He still is a great man. And I won't let him die in vain. I won't let him die for no reason. So, thank you.
I'm interrupting because I want everyone to know, she kind of left out something I think is really important for everybody to know. When she went to meet this detective, he told her that Quinten died and then left her. He left her in McDonald's by herself. And that was it. Told her that he died, got his car, and then left. I think that's important for everyone to know exactly how they are.
So going back to this point of, Josiah and Quinten, they were going to college, they were trying to make a better life for themselves, they were trying to change the patterns that they had seen, right, in the lives of people in their family, and both ended up dead, right? Josiah being stabbed, I believe he was called racial slurs while the stabbing took place, right? And Quinten dying incarcerated at Twin Towers. So these are two young black men that were trying to do things right, and they ended up dying in that way. So what does their death tell us about that idea, that narrative, that education is the tool to success? Right? What do you, and it's not just for Charmaine and Bear, it's for everybody in the panel. What do you think about the fact that these were two young black men, right, trying to defy the stereotypes that we have about black folks, young black men specifically, and they ended up dying the deaths that they did?
For me, it's more of like I told you, Quinten always talked about being successful, and education was the key to that for him. So I think just by keeping ourselves educated and educating the people around us, and just letting, to make sure that you know your rights and that you're not in the wrong, and still trying to do better even when things pull you down, it's just to keep going and don't stop fighting.
For my son, I know that, like I mentioned, coming from Jamaica, he know how important it was having conversation with, how important education was, having conversation with his grandmother, his great-grandmother. He knew that the path for success was education. And that's exactly what he was doing. He did everything right. He did everything right. He was not just a big brother to Anthony and Chloe, but he was a leader. DJ was almost completed his 2 years at HSU, and he was the president of Brothers United. And the reason he became the president was because this is from the brothers, he had the best grades. So that is why he became the president, but he was the leader. And when I met with Karen Deemer is the city manager at Arcata, she said that Josiah had sent her an email wanting to come in and talk to her about student safety off campus. So he wasn't a selfish young man, he was a young man that was, he wanted to make changes, not just for himself, but the community that he was living in. They did outreach off campus, working with the youths, and I didn't even know that he was doing that. But he definitely wanted to change the world. One of his professors saved a paper that he wrote, and he talked about going into the prison system, because he was a criminologist major, going into the prison system and changing the narrative about Black people and how we are portrayed, and the stereotype. And he wanted to build, get a bill to change the narrative, and that's the path that DJ was heading into. And we're a family. We're a loving family. Everybody have their differences, but DJ had lots of support from our family. He had support from the community, and the support that the community is giving us right now, even Humboldt County. I remember when everything just first happened, and we had our rally, peaceful protest. We had people saying, "Nigga, get out!" Excuse me, but that's what they said. It was very racial. It was very racial towards us as people of color that were there just fighting for justice. And I see the big difference now. We had a rally a couple weeks back. We had almost 300 people that came out to the rally, of justice rally. So myself and the community, our family that is, showing up in Humboldt and letting the community know, like, I'm not going anywhere. And that's what we do. We have to stand together. We have to fight for our loved ones and let the community know that, look, we already know that this town have a history, and we're going to change the narrative. We are going to let you know that our voices have to be heard, and we're going to let our voices be heard, and we're going to let them know that our loved ones mean everything to us. They mean everything to us, and to know that my son was on that path, and for Quinten was on that path for greatness, for wanting to change the world, wanting to make their family proud, and their lives to be taken and no one to be held accountable. That's just not okay. It's not okay. And I'm not sitting back, and I'm thankful for you for not sitting back, because one day your daughter is going to ask you, Mom, what happened to my dad? And at least she'll know that you fought for him. And like my son Anthony, who's here, and my daughter Chloe, she's a 9th grader in high school, and they see that I'm fighting for DJ, and they see that Anthony said, man, Mom, at least I know if something happened to you, you would fight for me the same way. But I'm not doing it by myself, we're doing it as a community. And I'm so thankful that you guys are all here to support us. As parents, stand together with us, stand in solidarity. Just know that, let the system know you're not going to take our young Black men, women away, and nothing is being done about it. So that is the perspective that I have.
I wanted to ask that question because oftentimes when a Black person is killed, especially by law enforcement, the questions of what were they doing wrong? They must have been doing something wrong, right, to be killed.
And that is what, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, and so it's not about our actions as people of color, right, necessarily. It's not about what we're doing. It's about how we're already constructed as a threat. right? And our lives are all, our deaths are already legitimized in that way. Here are two examples where it wasn't their actions, right? It wasn't that they were doing something wrong. Even if you're doing the right thing, because of who you are, you're more vulnerable to die from premature death, right? And that's kind of like what because here's Quinten and Josiah who are doing things right, but there's other, other people of color who are easily portrayed, especially black folks, easily portrayed as, oh, they must have been using drugs, or in Sandra Bland's case, right, she was uppity, right? She was, speaking back to the police officers. If she had just been respectful, something about her actions, no, it has nothing to do with their actions. It has to do with who they are in this world, right, and how they're perceived. That makes them vulnerable to the kind of violence that both Quinten and Josiah experienced, right? So I want us to keep all of us that in mind, right? It's not what we're doing, it's how, communities of color, especially black communities, are already perceived as a threat, and their deaths are already legitimized in that way, right, for society.
And that is what happened when the police arrived on the scene. Like I said, the party was being thrown for a friend of my son, who's a black young lady at HSU. So the party was, majority of the students there were African American. And the police, in their statement, they said that it was crowd control. They were trying to control the crowd. It was too many black people. They were afraid for their lives. That is what one of the detectives said. And that is why I have to keep going and fighting, because I said, you're not going to demonize my child. You're not going to demonize him, and I'm here to humanize my kid, to say, look, this is my son. He didn't deserve this. No one deserved to die that night. But if we go away, they want us to go away, but we cannot go away. We have to continue to talk and let them know we are going to fight. And if I would have gone away, trust me, we would not be here 22 months later. Or no, probably we would have been here maybe 5 years or so later before I get justice for my son. I can't go into the case in details, but we are so close. We are so close to getting justice for DJ. But if I would have gone away, we would not be here. We would not be here.
Thank you. Dr. Watkins, you have a much longer history here at CSUN than most of us do. So you have a lot of institutional memory. How has CSUN treated black students over the years? What have you seen since you were a student here, undergraduate student, and now as in your position?
So I want to begin by thanking Charmaine and really for the courage that you're showing, because you're absolutely right. If you were silent at this time, this would just be another statistic. Just another statistic. And we know the statistics. What's being shared here, I'm sure, is not news to anyone. We know this all too well. Our hearts have been broken far too many times. Too many mothers have cried. Too many siblings have lost siblings to this kind of violence and hate that continues to be far too prevalent in our society. So our heart goes out to you. So sorry for your loss. But know that this community here stands with you as you continue to try to right the wrongs that you shared with us today. And Sahara, this will always be a place where you can be. And we certainly hope that you're able to take that next step and come to join us here at Cal State Northridge. Quinten was here and stayed here because he knew that the process of getting an education here and the outcomes was worth it. I did have a chance to know him and to counsel with him and to hear from him his dreams. I came from South Central LA. I went to Washington High School. I'm down in that same area. And know that all of those kinds of outcomes are just so important to that community. So we celebrate you and your daughter, and we'll keep you in our hearts as well. No one should try to talk about how CSUN has treated anyone. CSUN is multi-layered, multi-dimensional. We're not one anything. We have students who come here who have phenomenal, exceptional experiences. At an event this past weekend, the Black Alumni Association, with person after person talking about a fantastic experience that they had. But probably everyone in that room knew someone who had had a miserable experience here as well. That misery sometimes comes by institutional policies and procedures that are not permeable and not flexible to meet the needs of students. Sometimes it comes by dint of one individual who may say something or do something, maybe in a position of power, to actually stamp out a dream and to cause a student to be so hurt and bruised that they don't return back to the university. I think the university is trying to be more honest with itself about the fact that that does happen to our students, and that when we bring students to the university, we have a moral obligation to try to assist them in the journey of accomplishing the goals and dreams that we said that they could accomplish when we recruited them here to our institution. So we have an obligation to do that. We don't do that perfectly, and I'm here, and there's a lot of administrators and others here in this room who are engaged in the process of trying to always get it right. You know, we're not here to profess that this is heaven and perfection. We're in the journey of trying to continue to make this an institution that achieves its mission and its goals. When I came here, Cal State Northridge in you know, there were just a handful of us. I think it was the second year of the EOP program. I think I was admitted to the university only a couple of weeks before the start of the fall term. You got information late. You didn't have a great deal of assistance in getting things in. Thank God for EOP being there even back at that point in time. And yeah, you know, the same kinds of things, sadly, that we talk about now in terms of the sense of not feeling welcomed. You can find that experience here at Cal State Northridge today. We were with a group of students last night who shared some of that with us in terms of the current experiences. But we know that you can also have other kinds of positive experiences here. And I don't want any student who's in this room to leave this room thinking that your future and your fate is sealed to have a horrible outcome. The folk who are in this room are here to do what they can to help you have a positive results-oriented and achieve your goals here. The experience of Black students on this campus have ebbed and flowed. There have been times when it was a very solid community. Certainly when I was a student here, the numbers were such that you could almost know everybody. Up through periods when our enrollment and our percentage of students here was probably as high as maybe 8% of our entire student body. To now, it's down to 4 point something here. All of us are trying to understand what are the variables that are impacting that. And they go all the way from the change in the demographics in LA County, to admissions changes in the University of California, to Cal State Dominguez Hills, and Cal State LA. We're showing up and recruiting students as actively as we have. Black folk have choices, and they're exercising those choices. Some students are not first generation, and maybe they're second generation choosing to go to other institutions. But the recruiters that we have here, and some of them are in this room today, are out doing everything they can to tell the story about the opportunities that are here at this institution. If we didn't believe in this place, we wouldn't be here. We wouldn't be here. So we're going to continue to try to get it better and get it right. And whenever there is injustice that shows up, we'll deal with that injustice when it presents itself. So I'll just stop there.
So for Justin and Malik, you're both student activists on campus. So I'm sure that's in part informed because of your experiences here. So how have you experienced being a student here at CSUN? How has that informed your personal activism, your commitment to creating some positive change?
So I grew up in this area, you know, I'm from Northridge. It was often a joke in my school going to CSUN was for the kids that couldn't do anything. I mean, that's not really true. I got to the Pepperdine, I just chose here. You know, coming here, I came here because I heard it was a verse. That's what they preach, that's what they advertise. They advertise like such amazing diversity and such amazing opportunities. And I've always wanted to do biology, been discouraged from that for a lot of my life. And of course, you get that kind of cold welcome you get in most STEM sciences when I entered. But I was very warmly welcomed in Africana. It was very much one of the reasons why I added it as my minor. It is by far the most welcoming environment that I've been in this cultural studies, ethnic studies. Chicano has very warmly welcomed me. I'm sure American Asian Studies would welcome me as well if I was there more often. But as for my experience as a Black student here, I found very early on that you really, I wouldn't say fend for yourself, but there are going to be the challenges you have to face to still fight for your existence here, as Black people have been doing since the beginning of America's birth. It hasn't always necessarily been easy. Like I said in my bio, I've been fighting for ethnic studies since freshman year when they wanted to completely get rid of Section F. And that was a shock to me, I came here thinking that ethnic studies is what they pride themselves on, what is so strong here about the campuses, their ethnic studies. And I was amazed at how that supports Black students on campus, because that's, I would say, by far the largest support we have on campus is ethnic studies and cultural studies. It often very much helps and directs and guides students to what they need. And I truly appreciate their work. And through fighting for ethnic studies with this new executive orders, I've seen that even here we still have to fight with it for existence, like I've seen. But we've really been very often been seen as just angry Black people and angry brown people, and that perception has been following a lot of the students around. I personally was attacked on campus at one point. It was supposedly a prank, but I watched them attack other Black and brown students as well. Turning Point USA nearly attacked one of our rallies for our student protests as well, peaceful protest, trying to get rid of these executive orders. And it's often that the Senate sees us as just angry Black and brown people there as well. And it seems it's gotten to the point where they're starting to almost disregard Black students outside of ethnic and cultural studies. And that's not a reflection of everyone, all the admins and whatnot. But it just seems as though we're not really a priority on campus, especially because we're the minority amongst minorities, which is quite often the case. But you go outside of CSUN, there are a ton of Black and brown communities, and it just seems that they're not on campus. And I just question why, what's about CSUN that's not getting its student count up? It just seems like we're dwindling and dwindling. In addition to our funding ethnic studies, it's just been a constant fight from the beginning of my entry into the school. And I chose CSUN over Pepperdine, aside from the fact I didn't want my mom to pay out that money. Trying to be conscientious about it. My sister went to a private university. I didn't want to put her through the same thing. But the fact that it prides itself on something I can find other universities, and I'm starting to see that it might not be as good as they advertise it to be. One of the comments from the chancellor, as I thought was much needed, because he seems to not truly care about the students of color on campus. And one of our president, which should also give a reflection of how we're still fighting for our right to exist. And I don't necessarily speak for every Black student on campus or every student of color. I've been very involved in these protests, but that's pretty much my take on it. We do have resources here that other colleges don't, and I pride us on that. I appreciate that, but it just seems those resources are being attacked fairly constantly, in my experience. And I would like to thank you guys too for speaking. I don't have a kid or anything like that, but I have a little cousin who's 4 now, and I can't imagine what would happen, how I feel if he were to be taken from me. And hearing about all this all the time just makes me question if I want kids myself, because it's just like, it's the reality we live in. And it's dark and it hurts sometimes, but we're resilient people and continue to fight. So thank you.
Say his name, Josiah Lawson.
Josiah Lawson.
Say his name, Josiah Lawson.
Say his name, Quinten Thomas.
Quinten Thomas.
Say his name,
Quinten Thomas.
Say her name, Keisha Michael.
Keisha Michael.
I think it's important that we show that these are not ordinary times. That it's not business as usual, and that we can't respond in the same seated civil way, in the same quiet voices. I started at CSUN in 2000. And when I started at CSUN, I started off as a political science major, double majoring in English. But I also had a different experience. When I first got the question of what is it like to be a black student at CSUN, I said, y'all asking me? Y'all want to know? I've been arrested by CSUN police 4 times since I've been here. The first time was for skateboarding. The second time I was hungry and I stole a piece of pizza. The third time was for protesting. The fourth time I was homeless and sleeping in the black house. I logged onto a computer, and the police came up to me the next day and said, Justin, they had a smile on his face, and they said, come with us. I did Friday, Saturday, Sunday in jail. On Monday, I came to see the judge. And the judge said, you're banned from the campus for 6 months. So when the question to me about how CSUN treats black students came up, that's what came to mind. But I didn't know if I wanted to share that with you all. I didn't know if it was appropriate for me to talk about my experience. But then coming back to CSUN, in between this launched me into a trajectory. I started at a union, working as a union organizer, getting paid $65,000 a year without a degree. And then going to Inglewood with the Social Justice Learning Institute, getting linked up with the Prison Education Project, and going to Uganda, Africa, and learning from the prisons there. And coming back here and seeing that some of the same things that we're fighting for, that right now at this university we're celebrating 50 years of ethnic studies. We're celebrating 50 years of the takeover of that administration building. But yet the history is sterilized. So when we quote Martin Luther King and we say that injustice anywhere is a threat to injustice everywhere, we're talking about in the classrooms and halls and in this very room, right? So for me to think about what it's like to be a black student at CSUN, I look at my ethnic studies professors, and there's 23 full-time ethnic studies faculty members and 28 sworn officers for the CSUN PD. And this is only to point out that our priorities dictate the outcomes that we have. And if we want to have race-specific outcomes with regards to black students graduating and not being killed, then we need to have race-specific strategies. I think that it's also important to say that since leaving and coming back to CSUN, they've also instituted the CSUN Food Pantry, where students can go 2 days a week and get food. For me, this is amazing. This is what justice looks like. That's what safety feels like, is when we have resources readily accessible. Now we also have mental health services, right? But when you look at where our university and student tuition dollars are going, you will find that, again, there are these constant attacks on the resources that are supposed to support us. But this is not different from the conditions outside of the campus that exist in the state and in the nation. In this room, they vote. The faculty senate meets, and they vote on whether or not they want to accept executive order. They voted 3 times to say no, but yet administration still pushes it down, saying that this is what's best for the people when the people have spoken. And again, that happens in this room, and the same attacks on democracy that happen outside when you have professors like Melina Abdullah at Cal State LA being locked up is the same thing that you have here on this campus when they're saying, no, we only want 5 students, we're going to have a lottery, and then you see pictures from the sundial, and you see all these empty seats, and yet students are locked out, right? What is it? There are not some secret, things that we can change on this campus to make Black Lives Matter. It's just listen. The students have been talking. They have not stopped talking since 1968, right? So I agree with Dr. Watkins when he said that there's not one CSUN. right? There definitely is more than one CSUN. But we have an opportunity, a choice, a duty right now to decide what CSUN we will be. In 5, 10 years, will we have ethnic studies at all? Will we have free college education? Will we have more black faculty members than police officers? Right? I think that, will we commemorate? Will we have more murals like the one in Jerome Richfield, which celebrates our legacy? Or are we going to continue to name our buildings after administrators that celebrate their 4.6% black population? Meanwhile, students are being pushed out of the university. So when I think about Quinten Thomas, when I think about Josiah Lawson, when I think about Keisha Michael, Marquinton Sandlin, I think about how important this opportunity is, but how we must subvert the status quo if we're going to have different outcomes. We must not just halfway fund these things. I can go to the food pantry 2 times a week, but I can go to that jail 24/7, right? So where are we funding? EOP is a great program. Put more. Mental health services on campus are great. Give us more of these things, right? And at the same time, organizers, ourselves, family members, we know that our strongest resources and wealth have come from our social ties and our social connections. And that rebounding from a trauma like the state murder of your loved one or the incarceration of your loved one, that it's social ties. If you are talking about a mass shooting, or if you are talking about some disaster, that the number one indicator, more than how much money you have or what area you're in, is the amount of social ties that you can continue to foster. So I would say to continue to get to know one another, to continue to share, to formalize these relationships, to continue to support one another, to get linked up with groups like Give Me Empower Now, or on campus with the Revolutionary Scholars, or the Black Student Union, that these are the places that continue to need resources. And so my experience as a black person on CSUN is my own. And I think, Malik, as you said, there's no one way to be a black student at CSUN. And that by participating in the rigor of academics, that is also how we strive for liberation. That excelling in your studies is a part of resistance. But at the same time, there is a difference between activism and organizing. Activism shows up, and that is an on-ramp into organizing, which is sustained, which takes a look at what are the levers of power. When they brought Reverend Lawson on this campus, and he talked to us about what it would look like for CSUN to have a future where students are respected and that we have the freedom to speak and to define our destinies and to support our agency. So right now I work at Crenshaw High School. And it's an all-black campus, and I'm encouraging students to come to CSUN, but there's some part of me deep down that wonders if it's safe for them to come here. Should I not tell them, just go straight to a HBCU, go somewhere where they will see you and where they will respect you? But then I come to the campus and I'm with folks like Audrina Redmond, or I'm with folks like Dr. Hackett in the Ethnic Studies Department. Like I'm with these people, and they make me feel like there's still a chance for us, that there is 2 CSUNs, and that there are these pockets of safe areas. So that's what I'm saying.
To Zahara and Charmaine, and then to the rest of the panel. What does justice mean for you then in the case of Quinten and Josiah? And then for the panel, what does justice mean for black students in the CSUs?
Man, no one know my pain. My pain is so deep. It's so deep. Justice for my son, for our family, for Humboldt County, the CSU system, his friends, for me, is holding the person, or persons, that took my child's life, that took his life and felt like his life meant absolutely nothing. Justice is for persons to be held accountable. To be held accountable to the fullest extent of the law. For his case to be prosecuted by Humboldt County, oh my gosh, but for my son's case to be prosecuted by an experienced prosecutor who does not show hate bias, because that's what I've been dealing with, who does not show hate bias towards my black child. His color should not matter. It shouldn't matter. A wrong was done, and they need to right. They need to make it right. We are suffering. I'm suffering. I've reached out to the Attorney General's office. I asked for his case to be taken away from Humboldt County. I don't believe that my son will get a fair trial in a town that is filled with 75% white and don't care about people of color. But justice for me, for our family, for my son, who did not deserve this. No one deserved this. But for that person that felt like, you know what, your life doesn't mean anything, I'm gonna take it. To sit in jail for the rest of his or her life, and to know that they destroyed a family. They destroyed a family. My son will never be able to accomplish the dreams he set for himself. He had big dreams. I'll never be able to see my grandchild. Never be able to go to his wedding. I won't be able to watch my son graduate from college. But what I did do, Nadrina knows, HSU came to my son's funeral and they gave me his honorary degree. And I respectfully gave it back. I said, you're not just gonna hand me a degree, well, it came through the mail. You're not gonna just put his honorary degree in the mail. My son will be a part of commencement. I will attend his graduation. I will. They're not gonna rob us from that. They're not gonna take that from us. So I said, evil will not win this. Evil will not win. I will get justice for him. I will, because I'm gonna continue to fight. I'm not going anywhere. And Humboldt County knows that. They know I'm not going anywhere. So I ask that you guys continue to pray for our family. Pray for our family. Pray for justice. I have some postcards in the back. The postcard reads, in part, having Humboldt County Maggie Fleming, DA, recused herself and turn the case over to the Attorney General. And just please sign your name to it. You can write a statement on there. I will take them and mail them. That is what we have been doing. We have been putting a lot of pressure on her. I met with not going into too much details, but I did meet with the prosecutor that will be prosecuting my son's case. He's not from Humboldt County, so that's amazing. So God is good. You know, but we're not there yet. We're not there yet. I am leaving space in my heart for forgiveness, because that's what my son would have wanted. Thank you.
Justice for me means for the truth to prevail. When my little girl gets older, I want her to be able to, when she asks that question, like, Mommy, where's Daddy? Like, what happened to him? How did he die? How did he pass? Why my daddy's not here with me anymore? I want to be able to give her the truth, and not just a partial truth or a fake truth or no lies. The truth, what really happened. Justice for Quinten, for me, means not to let the people who had him in custody be in charge of his investigation. That shouldn't be right. That shouldn't be law. There needs to be some type of outside source, people from the outside who don't have ties with them to be able to get a hold of that information and do their own investigation. Because there's too many cover-ups, there's too many lies being swept under the rug, and Quinten, he does not deserve that. He will not be a bug on the windshield that you're just gonna flick away like he didn't have a life, that he didn't stand for something. I mean, justice should be justice, right? I mean, it seems so simple and so clear. And not only just for Quinten or Josiah, but for the other ones that nobody knows about, for the future, that they have plans for, just sweeping under the rug when something, quote unquote, accidentally happens. The cycle needs to end. There needs to be no more deaths. And so that's why we gotta keep fighting, no matter how hard it is and no matter how much time passed. You know, it's kind of hard for me because, you know, I'm just 21. Like, I don't really know what steps to take and where to go. And I thank God that Dignity and Popper found me, because without them, I don't even think I'd still be in school. Like, I don't know if I would have been able to stay strong for my daughter. And I have, because I have that support. So, justice for me means just to keep fighting and to win. And not to let his name be forgotten ever, because he will never be forgotten. And we gotta make sure that this doesn't happen to anybody else, that nobody else has to go through this type of trauma. Because it's not fair and it's not right and it's not justice. Justice for Quinten. Don't let them get away with it.
Anybody else on the panel want to reflect on what justice would mean for them?
You know, justice for me is not just being the angry black man for protesting for equality.
what justice looks like is carrying on the legacy of folks like Quinten, who make the world a better place, right? When they're with us, they make our lives better. They're, they are the solution. And I think what justice means is that the families of those who lose their loved ones to police murder don't have to sit here in front of you and justify that they were doing the right thing. Like, I think justice means that we don't have to add a question mark after Black Lives Matter. We don't have to add a but after Black Lives Matter. But that Black Lives matter, right? And they need to matter here. So I think what justice looks like in the state of California is to employ the solutions that have been being talked about for at least the last 10 years. We're at a moment now where the conditions are right for us to make changes, to make institutional changes. And I think that looking at what Dignity and Power Now and Justice LA has done in terms of stopping the $3 billion county jail plan, instead going forward towards investing that money in mental health services across the county, that's what justice looks like. When we fight, we win, right? We know that even though it's not easy, that families have found justice in terms of finding accountability in these police departments. And I think that that is important. But on campuses, what would it look like? What would a CSUN look like to have a cop-free zone in 10 years? May sound ludicrous, but if you look at the $5 million budget of the CSUN Police Department, more than half of that money, more than half of the charges or stops that they're making is for drug and alcohol related offenses. It's not for violent crimes, it's for drug and alcohol related offenses. But why is, and even if the referrals or diversions, why is police our response to that? You have students coming here sometimes the first time away from their family, right? They go to a party, they let loose, right? Is there other strategies that we can teach them to cope and to deal? And does that require a criminal record? Does that require the justice system to intervene? And what else could we do with that money here on this campus? Because what it does is it separates families, right? That's it. And the folks who might say, well, that's all we've ever known. That's the only options that we've had. And I hear those. I hear those from parents at Crenshaw High School. But we also have alternatives, right? We know that at a party, when I registered for classes this time, I had to watch a video, the Title IX requirement about how to intervene when you see a predator in a party trying to take advantage of somebody in terms of sexual assault. None of those solutions that they offered had anything to do with calling the police, and I think it was a huge educational victory for the school in that sense, that they're teaching us how to intervene, right? We're not telling girls to watch how you dress, we're telling men to watch how you talk, how you think, how you engage. And I think that that's what justice looks like, is to find alternatives to police and to starve that beast so that we can reimagine how we're in relationship with each other. When it comes to education, when it comes to immigration, we know that looking at what it means to be a black Jamaican immigrant to this country or to come from another country and to come here, that it is hard. That we talk about this immigration fight, that's black folks too. So I think that justice looks like instituting the policies at a campus-wide level, citywide, statewide, countywide. The same things that you want for your own family is the same things that you want for public. Cornel West said that justice is what love looks like in public.
Yeah, okay, I'm ready now. You know, justice for me is looking in the face of a little boy or girl and telling them they got equal chances. Letting them know that they can honestly do whatever they want. Justice for me is not having to fight for existence. And I don't have to validate the importance of my culture and what I believe in, what I view as important. Justice for me is believing that I'm safe walking around campus at any time of the day. A man or woman just walking around, whether that be going to your car late at night, not needing an escort. Justice for me is my mom not having to be worried every time I go out because I might get shot by a cop. And justice for me is having a campus that equally values all the students and works on all the outcomes instead of burying it under a rug, which so often is done. Thank you.
My name is Michelle, and I'm with Dignity and Power Now. In 2011, I was sentenced to 1 year in a county facility. And while I was inside, I was sexually assaulted by a sheriff and medical staff. And I filed complaint after complaint after complaint. Nothing ever happened. To this day, nothing has ever happened. So I started a support group for families that are directly or indirectly impacted by incarceration trauma. And I have families, unfortunately, most of them in there are families who have lost a child or a loved one by death by the Sheriff's Department. And so when you talk about justice, and I hear everybody talking about justice, for me, I don't think I'm ever going to receive justice. When I got out of jail, I took a picture of myself, and it was with a gun in one hand and a sign in the other that said, "Looking for justice." And I've never found it. I don't think I'll ever find it, but what I have found, and the satisfaction that I have received, is helping other families get their stories validated, because no one believes us when we tell them that our child was killed by other racist children, a loved one was left alone with medical neglect inside a county facility. I mean, it goes on and on and on. So for me, what I see from other families is that they don't get justice once the county cuts them a check because their child or their loved one isn't going to be returned. So there's no justice in that. I think the justice comes from changing the system. Changing the system, finding an issue that is close to your heart and having a passion for that, and then following it and making a change. Because in all honesty, there's nothing that the Sheriff's Department could do for me financially. They couldn't give me an apology. They would say, "We're sorry for what happened," and they haven't to this day. How I receive my justice is by helping kids like Sahara, who've lost a loved one, try to find their future and help them be able to go to events and understand that they have the power to change the system. It's going to take a long time, but it takes a village, and it takes all of us to get together, and it takes everybody to expose. You have to expose, you have to want accountability and transparency, and you can't let that slide. Not with the Sheriff's Department, any police department, or the LA County Coroner's Office who colludes with the Sheriff's Department and the LAPD when there needs to be an investigation done regarding the death of someone. So pick an issue and go after it and make the changes that the system needs, because that's all I'm doing. I'm just one person, and I go down to CRDF and all the other places, and I find the issues and I take them back to LASD and I let them know what they're doing wrong. I take photographs of everything that's going wrong, and I take video and ask questions when people come out, and then I in turn take those, so that they can't tell me what they're getting from me is hearsay, because they're hearing it from me after I've heard it from someone else, and then I'm telling a third party what's going on, because now they're moving. And the reason why the LA County Sheriff's Department is moving, because I've been taking videos over the last 3 months and posting on Facebook, and they're little 3-minute videos, and they're when people come out, or families that have lost a loved one, it's how they're feeling and how they've destroyed, and the trauma that they continue to give these people. And that trauma needs to stop, because it goes from generation to generation. And it's not just the people who lose their loved ones, it's their families, it's their friends, because of the pain that these people show. Their friends and their families are also affected by that. So find an issue that is close to your heart and find an organization like Black Lives Matter, Ours, Dignity, and Power Now. There's so many of us out there that are working very hard to change the system, and you can do it too by coming and supporting that.
We have about 15 minutes, so we'll open it up to the audience and comments or questions that you have for the panel.
I have a question. This goes out to anyone with my entrance, but what are ways do y'all think to increase the Black student population on campus? Right now, it's below
The EOP that we have in EOP right now. So there's work to do on every front, and I enlisted all of your support in trying to get that work done, because I think that the educational experience here is a high quality one for those who come and undertake the experience. Thanks for your interest.
Yeah, support not building another $3.5 billion jail, and ask, why aren't we building more schools?
Right.
We need more schools. Why aren't we building more schools? If we want smarter people, we want a place where kids can go of color or any place, we need to build more schools and not be building a $3.5 billion jail.
Right. I would just add, Kelly, thanks for that question. I think about this line from Tupac. Y'all remember Tupac, right? So he had this thing about the roads that grew from concrete, right? And he talked about how it persists through hard circumstances. But if you look at the rows, and for this, it'll be the Black student, and if the roses aren't growing, then it's not the roses, it's the concrete, it's the environment, right? So if we want to increase Black students at CSUN, then we need to make CSUN a better place for Black students to be, right? So when we're talking about culturally relevant curriculum, which doesn't just mean that it happens in February, right? It means that that the pedagogy of the classes is informed oftentimes by those folks who have studied it and who spend time who's made this their life's work. There's a book called The Dream Keepers that, again, I was put onto by a professor here, Cedric Hackett, and I'd encourage any professor, any teacher, anybody who feels responsible for the lives and for the minds of young people to read that book, to look at the subtle ways that we can make a huge difference in terms of the learning environment here at CSUN. I was not successful, right? I flunked out and then got kicked out. And I still came back. One, in part because no one else would take me. But two, because of that second CSUN, because of the CSUN that has a legacy of social justice. And for me, increasing Black students at CSUN would mean not being afraid of that legacy, embracing that legacy. Let us be the lit campus. Like, of the 23 CSUs, you want to come to CSUN because CSUN is producing change makers, right? Like, let's lean forward into it instead of upholding the status quo and looking at doing the same type of trendy diversity programs that ebb and flow every 5 to 10 years. Like, no, this needs to be a committed strategy. What is CSUN's 100-year plan to try to meet that challenge?
Other folks?
Go ahead. Yeah. I was gonna say practice what you preach, you know. They talk all this stuff about diversity, but you're trying to downsize your ethnic studies courses. It doesn't really make sense. Yeah, and that comes from a bio major, so I'm not supposed to care about culture, but I do. Also, it helps having a president who seems to care more about students of color and not throwing things off. Having senators that actually don't get scared of students because they're voicing their opinions, that haven't done anything violent, because it seems a lot of senators are scared of brown and Black people speaking their mind. That's kind of a problem. And additionally, have more Black faculty. We have such a small amount of Black faculty on this campus, it's ridiculous. Yeah, they don't have to be ethnic studies. I feel like everyone's assuming I'm so ethnic studies right now. I mean, I am, but they don't have to be ethnic studies. But additionally, Africana studies could be very much use more funding and more expanding. because our tenure density is very low and faculty is stretched thin. But yeah, more black faculty everywhere. Black faculty is so low, it's kind of disheartening. When you come to the school, it's almost no black, and it's still mostly white faculty for a school that preaches diversity. So it's like, and it's been proven that having professors that look like you honestly helps you succeed academically. It's very hard to be what you want to be if you have no examples of that. So having more faculty that look like you and understand you and understand what you're going through exponentially helps the process. And like he said, having just culturally specific classes. As a psych minor, it's nothing about people of color. So it's like, it helps exponentially to just have that as part of the curriculum, regardless of the class, if it's something that mentions any kind of human or human history.
No, if I could add to that as well, speaking from a parent perspective and traveling back and forth to Humboldt State so many times and meeting with students, lots of students of color, BSU, SQE, the different clubs on campus. I must say that Humboldt State, Chico State is very remote, right? It's way up there. Recruiters are recruiting students of color here in the inner city or in Oakland, and they're bringing up to these remote universities, and a lot of students go up to Humboldt or Chico, and the main reason is not an impacted campus. I was talking to you earlier, you were talking about the impaction here. But when recruiters are recruiting these students, they have to be truthful to the students. They have to let the student know the type of climate that they're entering into. It's been 22 months, going on 23 months now since my son was viciously taken. 7 students at HSU has passed away since my son. That is outrageous, outrageous. We had Keemon Sterling, who was washed up. He was swallowed up by the wave, by the ocean. Another student was swallowed up by the ocean. 2 of my son, TJ's friends, didn't want to stick around for the 1-year anniversary, and they were heading back to the Bay Area, got into a car accident. Adriana can tell you, it's a crazy, the road is just, it's crazy, driving up to Humboldt. You're going up probably 15, 20 miles per hour in certain places because it's so bad as far as the curves and, just driving up there is just really horrible. And you entering into a climate that recruiters are not telling these students and parents that this is what your child could potentially experience. So you have the driving is horrible, where you're losing your lives. You have an ocean that students are not used to. You live here in SoCal. The ocean in Humboldt is completely different, swallowed up by waves. Then you have racist people that show hate bias towards your children. And it's not just on campus, it's not just off campus. The students have mentioned their microaggression on campus, off campus, and these are Black and brown students that we are having conversation with and dialogue with, and they're expressing their concerns with administration and saying, look, if I knew Humboldt was going to be this way, I wouldn't be here. But the story that we were told by recruiters made it seem we were coming to paradise. Adriana and I, we've talked about this. I said, going to Humboldt, you need a passport because it's a completely different world going up there. But recruiters have to, and administration have to be transparent with students and families and let them know the type of climate they're entering into. And that is why, since my son's murder, enrollment for Black students has, decreased. Has decreased. So there's so many different elements to answer your question, why the enrollment for Black and brown students. As a parent, that is what I'm seeing and having these conversations with the students. This is what they're experiencing. Safety. They're not safe, and they're not being told the truth when they're being recruited. So.
Hi, my name is Josiah. Oftentimes
Just because, I mean, at least I hope that we all have a collective love for our communities. And not just our communities, but for social justice, right? So with that being said, like, what can we do to resist? Because oftentimes when I come to the events like these, I always feel very, very hopeless. And I know Martha is laughing because I know we always talk about this. So what can we do? I'm sure there's other folks who are wondering the same question, or how can we support Black lives on campus and really anywhere? Yeah, so that's my question. Kind of a comment question.
I got you. So first off, you could, I mean, just be involved. That's a start. You know, educate yourself, know what's happening, be aware. I mean, you are aware. You know, you've been up there in the forefront of these protests. So I understand the hopelessness because they also really not listen to us still. But Black Lives Matter has actually been on campus. They still come through occasionally. Just so love and support to Black House and the Africana Studies or the any ethnic studies and voice your concerns, whether that be to your chair or whatnot. But it all begins with a student voice, and the most important thing to do is give that voice. You know, even if you feel like they're not listening. Because eventually other people will join you and will hear you. And if you just don't get that voice, there's no point in complaining. And I'm not saying you're not doing anything. But if you want to change, be that change first. And that requires you to be aware and to know what's happening. Voice that concern, that opinion to someone, and from there see what happens. But it all begins with you and what you know and who you know, and seek that out. Like I said, Black Lives Matter is here sometimes. I know professors that still talk to Black Panthers from like the original party, and they're all willing to help, whatever that need may be.
Sure, thanks Malik. Thanks Rocio for the question. I would just add, one is that there is a training actually that I invite everyone to join. It's an Alternatives to 911 training being hosted at Chuko's Justice Center on April 6th and April 7th, full day. And it's hosted by the Youth Justice Coalition and partners of the South Police Violence Coalition. And it's very interesting as again, we're talking about what we can do, is to find ways to be able to protect ourselves, to defend ourselves, but also to starve the beast, right? To remove the need or the requirement for us to be reliant on the systems that are oppressing us. The same way that you can educate yourself outside of a classroom, you know, you can protect yourself outside of a gun or police. I mean, in the state of California, there's a state mandate that said there must be a fire extinguisher within 75 feet of any part of, inside of a building. But last semester there was a bomb threat here on this campus, right? And the university's response was to flood the campus with police and to change the cameras. But what that did for me was it increased the likelihood that I was going to get arrested or shot. And I didn't feel safe, but also recognizing that emergency and disaster preparedness is everyone's responsibility, and that we're all accountable for those things. So again, I invite you guys to come. If you want, we invite groups to come. So we're looking for groups to come. It's free admission, and if you want, you can check out the Revolutionary Scholars Instagram page. They're going to be posting that information. Two is I would say to support support student voices. I think one thing that we could do is to make every the faculty senate meetings open to students who want to participate. Have them outside if need be, right? But don't constrict student voice. And I think that doubles down in terms of the data, that we should be producing our own data, that we should be polling students and teachers to find where the intersection of these solutions lie, right? And then three is to fully fund the resources for poor students, right? What we're talking about is not just a Black issue, it's not just a Latino issue, right? What we're talking about is also a class issue. We know that it's a gender issue as well, and that in this moment, as a university, we can make a commitment to supporting and doubling down on our investment of those projects and services you know, like the folks, like Deborah Hammond and other folks in the USU have been putting together over the past few years. So those are the three that I would offer.
So, Rocio, I have such high regard for you showing up and the work that you do. Your voice has been huge across some very important movements over the past 12 months and beyond. You probably recognize that most of your peers are not activists. They don't have loud voices. And so what I ask everyone who is engaged to do is to pay attention to those who are not, and to make it possible for them to have those wings and to have that voice that perhaps they don't think that they have right now. And even beyond the voice, there's the basic thing of just getting through classes here at Cal State Northridge, being accountable for each other's academic success, in achieving those kinds of things, because, you know, irrespective of what we say in a group or what we're marching about doing, at the end of the day, you got to get through that class. And so making sure that we're supporting each other when we're having difficult academic challenges, making sure that we're supporting each other when someone may need some counseling support, making it okay for that to happen, making sure that the students who are around you, everybody's paying attention to when the FAFSA is due and getting the financial aid squared away, or if you find out an opportunity, making sure somebody else knows about that opportunity. There's a lot of mechanics to getting through the college degree, and most of you students in here are pretty informed about things. And so I'm just trying to amplify the capacity that you have to reach out and touch those other students who sometimes exist at the margins, and they don't come back because they fall between the cracks. And often students are in a much better position to find their peers in those spaces than administrators like myself. So thank you for what you do, but even those little steps helping students around you really do make a difference.
So, sorry, we're a little bit past on time, so Manny, I know you have a question, but if you can come to the panel afterwards and ask the question personally, if that's okay. Just 3 really quick announcements. On March 5th, we're going to have Andrea Ritchie come to campus. She's going to be talking. She's an amazing Black immigrant activist, queer woman who has been doing a lot of work around the policing of Black women. So she's going to be presenting on her new book, Invisible No More, Police Violence Against Black Women and Women of Color. That's March 5th, 2 to 3:15 in Sagebrush 108. You can contact me for that information. We also have an event on April 12th, March 12th, March 12th for Quinten Thomas, a memorial for him. The anniversary of his death is coming March 9th, and so we wanted to make sure that as a campus, we refuse to forget, right? So that will be in the Whitsitt room, 2:30 to 3:30. 2:30 to 4. Orosia is the main organizer on that, so I keep looking at her. And then finally,
That same day is a panel on immigration and incarceration.
right before that, yes. At what time, Josiah?
The panel is from 1 to 2.
1 to 2, and then the event for Quinten is in the same room, Whitsitt room, and it's in the Sierra Hall, 451, I believe. And then if you haven't had an opportunity in Jerome Richfield, we did put up a memorial exhibition for Quinten. So if you want to take a look, we also included Josiah in that, and just include some of their, just pictures and some of their story. So if you don't get an opportunity today, please make sure that's going to come down later on in March, because we're going to put something else up on the movement against the EOs. So Jerome Richfield, first floor, if you get an opportunity to walk through and just read some of the messages that people have written for Quinten. So with that, please help me give our panelists a big thank you for being here. And thank you everybody for showing up and showing commitment.
Thank you. Before you go, there is an assessment form in every seat, so please fill out the assessment form. You can leave it on the back table. Also, in this same room, next week, Thursday, February 28th, from 2 to 4, we'll have another event. It's called Empty Your Pockets, Show Me Your Papers, Building Student Trust on Campus. So a lot of the issues that we explored here, we'll talk about even more during that event. So I hope you can all make it. Please help yourselves to some food and drink. Thank you all for coming.
How about a cheer for Moderator?